I graduated from high school in 1955, and my father retired from the Navy in 1955. So he went to Jacksonville, they went to Jacksonville, and I went on with my life, you know, just going home on vacations.
Yeah.
You know. So my poor sister, who was 7 years younger than me, got the hell of my father, a retired Navy captain, being retired early, being passed over, and very angry about the disappointment in his career. He spent his whole life at war at sea and kept getting, never got a command, let's put it that way. When you go to Annapolis as a, when you go to Annapolis, a naval officer, and I guess an Army officer too, I mean, the idea is to get a company, you know, be in command of something. You're not going to be just a grunt, you know, you're going to be in command. So for the Navy, getting your own ship.
Did he go to Annapolis?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So he went class of 29, and he worked, his father was a silver miner in Cripple Creek, Colorado. He and his brother.
Oh, wow.
And these were this second generation Irish.
Well, he accomplished a lot.
So they were dirt poor, groveling. I got a picture of them, and they were all just, sitting in a big group, and they're all just dirty and angry, except I guess my grandfather and his brother were the only two humans in the picture. And they had candles strapped to their legs, so they went in these mines.
Yes.
With a candle. I guess if it blew out, that meant that there was no more oxygen.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. Oh, my grandfather had to do that in the coal
Yeah,
mines.
so they, yeah, so, and then his father then got injured in a mining accident, and then they opened up a store, a general store in Prescott, Arizona, which was really dirt poor Arizona. My father, he remembers when Pancho Villa raided the town.
Oh, my goodness.
You know, when they had to hide from Pancho Villa because he was raiding
Wow.
you know, these things. So anyway, and he had a hair lip. His lip was,
Your father did.
my father, was split, you know,
Yeah.
but he repressed it. He said, what, he thought, I cut it on some glass. But we had to find out from other family members that he had a little split lip, and they had an operation to repair it. So,
Right.
you know, it just looked like a cut. You know, it wasn't one of these major no mouth things, you know, that you see. You know. So anyway, he had his grandmother, whose name was Gussie. My father's middle name is Gus. Mine too. So Gussie was a kind of like the family's Auntie Mame, or Auntie. You know, the matriarchal figure who basically helps the rest of the family. So Gussie, at the age of 19, was from Germany, and she left on a ship, sailing ship. This was around the time of the gold rush, and sailed all the way around Cape Horn by herself.
Wow.
Up to San Francisco, and married a gold prospector who struck it rich. And then they split the money and their marriage, and she went to Pocatello, Idaho, and bought houses, boarding houses. And her ex lost his money. I don't know where he went. But anyway, she was self-sufficient and had enough capital and property to help others. So she went down to Arizona to see her daughter, which would be my grandmother, I guess, yeah. Yeah, okay, I get it wrong. Yeah. So saw the conditions my father was in, I guess, with the hair lip and the whole thing. And you can't go through childhood with one of those things without feeling unworthy and rejected. So she took him back to Pocatello and raised him. And I think that his mother then went back up there later and got a boarding house for help with that, because there were no motels then. You had a boarding house, you had a good income. Ironically, on my mother's side, there was Aunt Annie, who, this was one of my mother's aunts. There were about 5 of them, and Aunt Annie was in Philadelphia during the Depression, and discovered that all the women who were had corsets prescribed by doctors could not get them fitted. So she opened up a fitting company, and all the doctors would send their patients for a custom corsets would be a custom corset. So she developed a rip-roaring business, made a lot of profit, was very frugal, and she bought boarding houses
Oh my
in
goodness.
Norfolk.
Oh my God.
So my mother, talk about the parallel.
Yeah.
So my mother, who grew up in Franklin, when her father injured himself in a mill accident or something, couldn't work, they went to Norfolk, and Annie gave my grandmother a boarding house.
Wow.
So my mother grew up in a boarding house in Norfolk.
Wow.
My father grew up in a boarding house in Pocatello. So anyway, my father then got a scholarship to the University of Idaho. He didn't have any money. And then he got a commission from the senator to go to Annapolis.
Wow. Wow.
So that was a lot of achievement. So we really had a lot of determination, achievement. And the most ironic story is that my father's older brother had left home from Prescott. Nobody knew where he was, just disappeared. And so my father was standing, going in to sign up at Annapolis. They go to Annapolis, and this is the line with the appointees from the senators. Every state gets a couple of appointees. And over there were the enlisted men who were coming up through the ranks and getting an appointment. And when he gets up to the window, he looks over there, and there's his brother.
Oh my goodness.
Something.
That's unbelievable.
Wow. And so then they run together.
Wow.
But his story didn't turn out to be as expected, because he developed some romantic fever, and his lungs were not healthy, so he had to leave, and came back, but it fell out again. And so then when my father was at sea during the war, he got a telegram that his mother had died and his brother had died in a car accident going to the funeral.
Oh my goodness. Huh?
That'd be tragic.
Yeah.
Connecting the dots.
But it's funny between the two
Yes.
on both sides were parallel experiences.
Yeah.
And strong women.
Strong
Yeah, two. Aunt Annie
Yeah.
had the capital that her principle, her mantra was, don't spend the principal.
Yeah.
Live on interest.
Yeah, live on the interest and profits more, but don't spend the principal. So she always had available money to invest in family members, like my Uncle Tommy. So my Uncle Tommy, that I'm not wearing anything of his right now. But he was in World War II as a photo analysis in the South Pacific. So he would, when the bombers went out, they would take pictures of what they bombed. They would come back, and the photo people would develop it and look at the picture. Oh, you missed this one. You got to go back. So that's what he did, was photo analysis. And he was a photographer before the war started. So when he got out of the Air Force in Tampa, he had married a beautiful woman from Maria from Philadelphia that he had met up there, I guess, visiting on Annie. So they stayed in Tampa, and he got a job working for another photographer, and he was just working himself to death. So Annie came down there and said, well, she lent him the money to build a state-of-the-art studio called Tommy Ewer Photography, or Tommy, Ewers, I forgot the Tommy Ewer. But it was the first studio built for photography, and he was the only photographer in the Yellow Pages.
Wow.
So he became the premier photographer in Tampa,
Wow.
and had good karma, because the property he bought, fortunately, was right next to a new TV station. Well, a new TV station bought the property next to his, but as the TV station grew, they wanted his property. So over the years, they kept upping the price, let me buy you out. So finally, when he was in his 70s, I think he sold it to him for a big hunk of money, and then just operated out of his home.
Yeah.
So he got a big bunch of cash and the property he bought 3 lots in Beach Park, Tampa, which is now a very exclusive little circular type of, almost like an oasis. Like, look at the map of Tampa, everything is horizontal, like that. It's just all mapped out, except Beach Park. It's like a wagon wheel. There's a little park in the middle, the hub, and then all the roads get, it took me years to figure out how to get in and out of that thing. Because all the roads are all curly, because you know. And I had to learn how to get out, and then I'd go away for a couple of years and come back and have to do it all over. But anyway, so he bought 3 little lots there for $17,000, sold one lot to a neighbor for I don't know how much, but then in the 90s, he had an empty lot next to him, so he had 2 big lots. And he sold the little lot next to him, which is just a little postage stamp, for $300,000. You know, so they put these mini mansions on these things. You know, they build
Oh, yeah.
the mini mansion. You don't have to worry about yards. You
Yeah.
just build a whole house up to the border,
Right.
and then have a courtyard. You know, and you drive into the thing. You know.
Wow.
And then when he sold his house, he got $300,000 for that. So he got $600,000. And I guess probably about, I don't know what the other lot went for, maybe $200,000 or whatever. So about $800,000 for a $17,000 investment.
That's pretty good return.
Now, who is this in relation to you? Because you have the,
That's my mother's younger brother.
so that's how you got into photography?
No.
No.
We didn't, how did we get into this?
I don't know.
But, all right, well, let's go.
Well, we're talking about
Let's
how.
go with it.
Yeah.
There's not many people. Yeah, so, you know, my mother had an older sister, Aretha, and then there were about 7 years in between. So Aretha lived in Jacksonville, so when my parents retired, the only person they knew was her sister, so they went there. And so Tommy was the bright child of the family because he, multi-talented boy. I mean, he could, I remember he would have a piece of paper and he would say, make a mark on it, you know. And so you would just, and he would draw beautiful. He would take that and build a cartoon off of it, you know. And, but his passion was photography.
Bye-bye, take care.
He didn't succeed in school because he was was a visually learning
He's creative.
child, and he couldn't learn in the text way of the school. So he remembers seeing a Brownie camera. This is back in the 30s. Well, maybe in the late 20s, 1920s. He was born in 1919. Okay, so maybe he was 10 years old, about 11, 12. Anyway, his mother bought him a little Brownie camera, and there was a big hurricane that flooded Norfolk, waist deep. Well, he was in high school then. So he went out waded out into the town and took pictures of the flood, where all the other photographers stayed on dry land. And so the newspaper printed all of his pictures. And so Tommy knew, he said, right then I was made.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so he quit school and got a job with a photographer. And to show you how early this was, the photographer he got a job with was still using magnesium flash powder.
Oh, my.
I don't believe in those newfangled flash bulbs.
Wow. Yeah.
So he had quite an evolution in photography from magnesium. When he discovered digital cameras, he went nuts. Oh man! I mean, this is every time we go down to Tampa, he had a new little digital camera. It was click. Oh, look at that! Look. You go to a restaurant for dinner, you know, and the waitress comes up. Look.
Oh.
Drove me nuts.
Yeah.
But it took but anyway, that was his passion, and so he had a whole new photography life and interest after retired with digital, and then he would get a printer, so he bought printers. He never did master the computer, But when the camera would print to the printer, oh boy. So he would have it in his car. And he would go to the restaurant, he loved waitresses. And he would see a new waitress, take their picture, disappear, and come back with a nice 8x10.
Wow.
And martinis, so he really, he
Combination.
infected me with martinis. He collected over 500 martini glasses. Every time he would go out, this is after he was retired, he'd go out, and he lived to be 94. But he would go out and, buy a martini, because in Tampa they had a lot of gift shops, and they would even call him up, say, Tommy, we got a new glass. And these are really works of art, really, some of them very expensive, $200 or $300.
Wow.
So he had them lining up in the kitchen, and then in the dining room he had shelves up. So after that, he filled up the dining room and the kitchen, he stopped, So anyway, I inherited them.
Did you?
So I've got all the martini glasses.
Minus one.
No, minus many, I'm gonna give you.
Yeah.
I was gonna open up a martini store on the internet, called theobsessivemartini.com. But it got to be so much effort to do it, and people would come in and see the martinis and say, well, pick one. And I got so much fun out of giving them away, that's what I do now.
Oh.
And I tell people when they're looking at it, it's funny watching people, because you got all these shelves, martini. Oh, I just can't pick. Are you serious? Pick one? Yeah, go ahead. Have one. Oh, are you serious? Okay.
They really are works of art.
Yeah, there's no other, they all kinds of.
Individual.
Yeah, at different levels. Some painted and some of them blown. Some of them with little fish and stuff. They're really nice. So anyway, and then I'll tell them. I say, did you see Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade? Oh yes, I saw that. Well, remember when he had to pick the chalice, the Holy Grail, and the guardian knight said, choose wisely.
Oh, yeah.
Because the German, chose the wrong one and went, So I tell them, one of these is the Holy Grail, so choose wisely. And if sometimes when a couple come in, usually the woman will make a connection and say, I like that. And the man is just, he's like in the Hurt Locker, I just can't choose, there's too many, and she'll pick, would this one be okay? Oh, yes, that's pretty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got him out of his dilemma. So anyway, my uncle got a stroke about 8 years ago, and his right side was, left side was paralyzed. His mind, everything was just, I'd go down there and see him, or I didn't see him. My mother stopped going down to see him after he had the stroke. I usually take my mother down to see Tommy for about 10 years, but every year we'd go down to Tampa. And I'd drop her off there, and she'd stay for a few months, and I'd go down to pick her up again. So I would go down twice. And so all through the 90s we would do that. But she stopped going to see him when he had the stroke, because, she was getting older, and he couldn't go out, so I don't think she wanted to, I don't know. Anyway, but I was okay with me. But anyway, he refused therapy. So when you have a stroke, there's a window where you can start, going through the therapy to get your body back. Well, no. And so he never was. So he just, that was it. He just sit in front of the TV. And Joy, who was his life partner, they never got married. And the reason they didn't was because she didn't want to become. So he had the beautiful Italian woman that he married in Philadelphia, kind of like became an Italian mother. She got diabetes, and so she kind of like, it was kind of like a yo-yo arrangement where she had control of the house and the money and the food and everything. And Tommy went out like a yo-yo and played with the waitresses and with the job and the photography, but he would always come back to Maria, you see. So that was, so she didn't want to go out, didn't go out and play with him at all, she was staying with it. So Joy became with it, you know. And she didn't want to become a Maria, even though he would usually call her Maria when he was not, you know, he would slip and call her Maria. So she didn't want to become that aspect of his life, you know. So then he got the stroke, and it's almost like he didn't want to, and she felt that, well, it was like a slow evolution of the loss of her freedom. She had her own apartment, and then she and Tommy would go out. Great. But then they changed the rent structure, and she had to leave the apartment. But it was a low rent thing, so, but she couldn't find any new place in her salary rate, you know, in her income range. So Tommy had an extra bedroom. So Tommy's, oh, come here, come here, come here. So finally she did that, and then he has the stroke. And so now he refuses therapy, so now she's having to take him to the toilet. You know, so now she's becoming a body servant. She got really angry, you know, because this is not the way it was supposed to be. And then it was almost like she felt like it was intentional because he refused the therapy, so that ensured that she would become his Maria, take care of him, you see, wait on him hand and foot, you know, because basically that's what it was, you know. She wouldn't, and then she wouldn't get him a wheelchair, so he was way over in the TV room, and there would be dinner, it'd be way over there. They had daycare, somebody help him, and so he'd be with the walker. You know, all the way to the kitchen. And so she wouldn't get him a wheelchair because he had to exercise.
That's right.
So anyway,
What happened to Maria?
Yeah.
Maria died of throat cancer.
Oh, she died before.
Yeah, maybe in the 80s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she wouldn't quit. Tommy smoked. Everybody smoked. He quit. She didn't. And she smoked right up to the time she died. In that house. So anyway, Joy, everything, you know, so now Joy's got Tommy and then she gets cancer. Kind of an angry cancer. I forgot what it was, but it didn't want to go away. So anyway, did treatment. It came back. As angry, the cancer was as angry as she was with, you know, so it was kind of like an anger, you know. So anyway, now she's got a terminal situation, and her family called me up, her daughter called me up and said, you know, you gotta come down here because my mother's having to deal with this cancer and deal with Tommy and the house and the expenses, and she can't do it, so you gotta come down and do something. I'm Tommy's only relative that can, my mother's still, but she can't do it. So I go down there with my pickup truck with a little refrigerator and a hot plate, little TV. I mean, I come ready, I bring all my support system with me, you know, my little books and a futon sleeping pad and the whole thing, you know. So he had a little tiny room that it was his photography office, which was about like here. And so I put up my little refrigerator and laid up at night. I slept on my futon, my the old couch and TV. And so I went down there and, at Halloween, and eventually became a hospice type of thing. I became a volunteer hospice because as Joy began to deteriorate, and I was doing all the shopping, and
Wow.
you know, and so basically then hospice came, and so and then she lost awareness, and so she kind of like lingered in a coma type of state for about a week with the hospice and the daughter and the family. You know, basically they couldn't. The daughter was it was real difficult for her. So I found myself consoling her because it was kind of like she can't get better and she can't die. It's like, you know, it's purgatory. You know, so But it was a great liberating experience for me because I had never sat with death before, but in a personal, impersonal way. So it wasn't like I'm sitting with someone that I don't, that would be painful if they died, But it wasn't just, I wasn't being paid, it wasn't, so it was a very unusual in the middle position where it was a personal relationship, but it was impersonal. So I became when the hospice people weren't there, I was giving her, they had morphine drops or whatever, so sometimes the hospice people couldn't make it. And so I really, it was a transformative experience for me because I really did sit with death. And I remember really asking death for its wisdom. Because there was death. So then Joy did die, and now that was in January, a year ago. Not this, but a year ago. So
Just
now,
a year ago.
yeah, not this year. We're in 14 now. This was 13.
Oh, yeah.
So no, she died in December.
Oh, I thought this was when you were younger.
No. This is just recently. No, I think it was in December she died, before Christmas.
Yeah.
So now I got this situation where Tommy has vowed to stay and die in his house there, and he's running out of money because he's got to pay daycare from 9 to 9, 7 days a week, $10 an hour. So you can figure that out. Plus, so that was, so there even, Joy's dilemma was even if she didn't die, there was no way they could stay in a house because they, even with her retirement and his, they couldn't pay for the daycare. So they were gonna be in a real fix. Because if they sold the house, then they would have to find another place to live, So it was, it was like something she didn't know how to get out of it. So anyway, so the cancer offered her the way out. But so anyway, now I'm in a fix where I'm playing my options. What can I do? Well, one was that my wife would stay up in Blackstone, and I would live there. And see, I had this bookend. I had a 100-year-old mother on this end, and Tommy on this end.
That's right.
So
Combine them.
my mother says she's going to die at her house. Tommy says I'm going to die at my house.
Yeah.
No compromise. Boom, So I thought my first option was, well, maybe I convince my mother to move down there, and she could have one bedroom, and Tommy would have the other, and they could combine their incomes to pay for one daycare. But that was doable, and then I would live in my little room that I liked. And then I would just go back to Virginia, back and forth, or Tilly could come down, like she's going to Florida, whatever, we worked that out. My mother said, no, I'm not doing that. So that meant I had to so the next one, either put Tommy in a nursing home, which Joy had tried to do when she was really going to cancer treatment, and the whole thing, and Tommy raised such a stink that the nursing home threw him out. He just cussed and screamed and yelled, and they had medicated him and did everything, he refused to be in there. His mind's good, and it's just this, I'm all right, except for this damn leg, it hit the thing.
Oh, my goodness.
So anyway, the nursing home was out, and so then I didn't even have power of attorney. He had his daughter's, Joy's daughter, ex was a lawyer, and so he worked up the papers, and he came over, he knew Tommy, he said, Tommy, listen, Ed's got to make decisions for you, and you have to ask him, will you let him be power of attorney? He said, no.
I knew it, yeah.
So that's all he could do, because you couldn't, the next thing would be going to court to declare him incompetent.
Right.
And then that's, you want to go there. So things go along, so I find a realtor, gonna sell the house, and then I do all the furniture and the martini glasses, don't forget the martini glasses. And he had a $40,000 player piano that he just fell in love with, that you see in the malls, you know, the Yamaha,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that will play George Gershwin or Frank Sinatra will be right there, boom, you know.
But wasn't he fighting you then, that you were gonna sell the house?
No, he didn't
Oh,
know.
he didn't care.
You didn't care at that point?
He didn't know.
Oh, he was out of it at that point.
No, he wasn't out of it. I mean, I contacted a realtor.
Oh, you just did?
So I'm trying to figure out, you know,
Okay.
how we're gonna work. So I was really, it's kind of like, you know, feeling your way in the, like if this room were dark, and you gotta find the door, you know, so you're gonna have to feel your way
Yeah.
to get to a door to move this thing forward, but I didn't know where the door was. And I couldn't impose my will on him.
Wow.
So, you see what I mean? So it's in a discovery, so, you know, but I mean, life had to, the present situation was not sustainable. So one day he said, it's in December, sometime he said, we gotta talk. And I said, okay, what time? He says, I'll stay here and you go back, because I told him, I said, listen, my mother is gonna be 102, January 23rd, and I'm gonna be back there for her birthday. I can't, you know, whatever happened, you know, he said, yes, you need to be back there for her birthday. So anyway, so that's like coming, so he said, we gotta talk. I said, what time? He said, you go back and I'll stay here. So we had a little Honduran daycare, about that tall. Her name was Lillian. And she worked from the heart. She was really great. And she was there, she said, oh, Mr. Tommy, we can't be your family. I mean, we can work for you, Mr. Tommy, but you have to be with your family. You know. So she kind of like put the, because he was going to stay there and let Lillian take care of it. You see, that was his thinking. So that kind of like stopped that. So I forgot what the turning point was. I think I said I have a realtor coming over tomorrow. He said, okay. So the realtor came in, and it was a lady he had done the wedding. He'd done 3 generations of wedding. He'd done the daughter's children, and so he was into his 3rd generation of weddings. So she came with the wedding book, you know, came over. So they talked about that, and then he said, "Oh, I'm selling the house." So
He said.
he said that, yeah. So I knew that we passed through. So that was the go-ahead, and I still didn't have power. I couldn't write checks or anything, so I was using his credit card. And so I called North America. So the next thing we said, all right, so what do we do with the piano and all this furniture?
You're very welcome.
So,
Thank you for all your efforts.
Nobody wanted although I think he paid $35,000 for it. He got a deal. It was a $40,000 again. And Joy had tried to sell it, but the company that he had bought it from, who said it was going to give him $8,000, and she said absolutely not. So anyway, I didn't, you know. So a friend of mine in Blackstone, I was talking to him, and he plays the piano. He said, "I'll buy it." Because the problem was if he's going to buy it, he said he'd buy it for $8,000. Well, I didn't care. So, but now the problem is the shipping. So if you ship a piano by itself, it may be $4,000. I don't know. So then, all right. Well, so then we'll just ship the whole household up to Blackstone, and then that will include the piano. So it was $200 to ship the piano with the house. So what are we going to do with the furniture? So he had nice early American dining room, and that was a complete, and some other cupboards and stuff like that, buffets and things like that. But as far as the bedroom and things, so I gave some of the bedroom stuff to the 2 help. And and when I first got there, he had a little TV room. The little TV room was about little sunroom, a little Florida and about like that, but he had a 72-inch TV. So it was like being in a theater, you know. Whoa. Tommy always got the biggest and the best. So as soon as I got there, the thing crapped out. I mean, the power system, you know, because it was old and he'd had it for a long time, it just blew, you know. So I said, we need to get Tommy another TV. And Joyce says, don't, Dad, no, can't afford it, can't afford it. And so then I said, well, he has to watch TV, and that's all he's got. So she said, okay. So I went over to Best Buy and got a 65-inch Sony, or 60-inch Sony. It was a really nice TV. So I had that, you know. So anyway, what the help did it take? The rest was shipped, and back home. See, we had no dining room furniture at all because I was I had stripped it. Well, first of all, we have a big Victorian house, high ceilings, and a big room, and so I had a photography studio there with lights, backdrops, and all that. So when I opened up a yoga studio to have yoga classes, I put in a shag carpet and took out all the lights and just had backdrops that you could pull down and portable. So it was kind of a schizophrenic room where if you came for a yoga class, you have a yoga class, or if you came for a photography, you'd have a backdrop and lights. You know, so it was, but no one came to the yoga class anymore, so that was a dead deal. And the recession was killing the photography, so both of them were going, you know. So we have no dining room furniture. And the shag floor had terrible brown spots on it because our cat had diarrhea once, and just we could not stop the cat from. And cat, you know, when cats have diarrhea, it's not like dog poop. You can't. It goes into the rug and through into. You know. So with Thanksgiving, my retailer was I was down in Jackson, in Florida, and had a big Thanksgiving dinner. We always had one, and the water heater blew and flooded the floor. Didn't know it for days until they were setting up the table, and it was like swamp, squish. What is this? Squish, squish, squish. So they called it was a water heater had gone, so the insurance paid for a new floor. And so when we came up there, we had a nice wood floor laid down. So then in comes Tommy's furniture. So we've got a ready-made dining room set up. Oh. And so Tommy came, and I got, we brought him up, he had a big Lincoln. And so I brought him up with Lisa, and we stayed in a motel halfway up. And then we came up to Blackstone, and we were right. My mother at the time had gone to the hospital for a blood clot or something else, I don't know. So she was in the hospital, and then she lost her swallow, so they were going to put a tube in and do something for the swallow. So they had a little operation. So she was going to have that the next day. So I got up there the day before she had her operation and wheeled Tommy right in. Here we come. And she was awake and aware right then, you know. Oh, so with the two of them, like, was, you know, they were so happy to see each other. It was so beautiful. And so we went to Blackstone, and the next day she had the operation. The next day she died. She survived the operation, but then just went to sleep. But she was able to do that because two things that were she was very concerned about, and that was what's going to happen to her younger brother, who had been commissioned to take care of her. She grew up having to take Tommy with her, you know, that kind of thing. You know, so, and then her dog. So the little poodle, my wife bonded with the poodle, so she said, will you take the dog? My wife said yes. They'd already bonded, so Tommy and the dog were taken care of, so she was okay. So then Tommy came to live with us, and it was a lot like Downton Abbey, where my wife and I were now cooking meals for four, because we had Tommy and the help, and he had a really good appetite. So it was 3 big meals a day. Breakfast at Tommy was very regular. Breakfast at, he'd get up at 9, breakfast at 10, lunch at 2, martinis.
Yeah.
So we were like, cleaning and cooking, fixing this meal. So it was like we were the servants, and
Yeah.
then here comes the master of the house, he's wheeled in, we have, and I put a little thing on my little towel on my arm and say we're having specials tonight. Like he's at a restaurant.
Tommy knew how to live.
It was just,
Yeah.
it was just, and it was just a year of, well, it was a year of service.
Yeah.
Basically, because it was, then he started getting bladder infections, and the house would fill up with ammonia, like we go to a nursing home, and it, like a chicken coop, that kind of, so then we were fighting that, and then he got the infection would go away, so he got a catheter, which stopped the use of diapers, because he had diapers.
Yeah.
And then he couldn't get, so we had lift chairs.
Yeah.
And we had to get a lift chair because we ruined one help, she hurt her back
Yeah.
trying to get him up because he's 190 pounds and dead weight. He was losing his ability, he couldn't stand up, so it was like. So anyway, we ended up getting a hydraulic lift where you could strap him up and crank him up and swing him around and drop him in
Oh,
a
yeah.
chair and reel him out and reel him back, so it went like that, and then losing track of time. It was last he died his birthday was in July. He died in March, this was last year. And Tilly said, Tommy, you're gonna be 95 in July. And he said, I won't be here. When I went down there, he told me he wanted to die, because his life, from his point of view, he had no life with a stroke. That was it. He said, I used to be able to do everything, now I can do nothing.
Right.
So basically, he was just waiting to die. So his only pleasure was his martini, so that's when every 5 o'clock, I could hear it now. I'd bring him the martini and he would go, oh God! It's like, oh my God, Jesus, thank you.
Aw.
So, but the rest of the time you just sleep,
Yeah.
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 So anyway, I didn't take him to a hospital to hook him up on tubes, because he didn't want that. So we had a home care doctor that would come to the house, and he had his help, and he just stopped eating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm done. So we let him do that. Rather than say, oh no, you're going to the hospital and we're going to force feed you.
Right.
So we did. So anyway, but it was quite an adventure for me. And this was very significant. I look at my life close up as I live it, but there's also a part of me that sees more of a mythological or more of a psychological or a larger frame. Because everything is integrated, and so with us, we have our story about who I am and where I am now, and my past with the family and previous marriages and jobs and all these things seem like little compartments, like a chapter, well, there's this chapter and that chapter, but we don't see the whole book as one life, all integrated. And everything, it's kind of like an organism or a hologram where every cell has the blueprint for the whole body in it. So if you take one cell, you can create the, that's what we're talking about. Take a little DNA from one cell, you can grow the whole organism. So everything that happens in our life, you see, contains, it looks like a fragmented little event, but it really contains our whole life in it. But we see it broken up like a sausage. We don't see the whole pig, you know, we just see the pieces, the sausage, we don't see the links, you see. So how does Tommy link to my disappointed and angry father, naval officer, who died when he was 94 at home in Blackstone? Now, he had a stroke too, but it didn't paralyze his body. It just took away the anger. You know, so he could no longer make decisions. So mom became the captain, go out to dinner, and what would you like? Well, you choose. You know, you just did. And no more anger. The old pop would flare up just a little bit, like he might be in the back seat and I might be a little slow or something driving. Don't you know where you're going?
Why do you think it took away the anger?
Well, the stroke took away a lot of his memories.
Memories, okay.
Yeah, so he didn't, this was a touching story. So he felt, even though he had a stroke, he felt like his emotional body was a disappointment that he did not become the respected captain with a command that he had dreamed of having, you see. So he was always on an admiral's planning board. In other words, he would plan up amphibious landings. So he would be in the planning of it. No command. You know, so he was, you know, a planner. So so there was no recognition, no command in that, you know. They finally gave him the command after he had 29 years in the Navy. After 28 years in the Navy, they finally gave him the command, which was decommission an oil tanker. So that's when he quit. Retired. You know, and he was angry. So we're sitting at my house one afternoon. They moved up to Blackstone, my mother and my father. I got them to move up in 1996. She bought a house, and they were over at our house. And now in our town, there was a naval ROTC at the high school, and it was new. And the naval officer that started it was what you call a Mustang. I mean, he went up through the ranks, listed man, got a commission, and then went up to be commander. 6'3", big. He was Navy personified. Well, he was. I mean, he was at that time, had been in the Navy longer than any other active person. But he was retired, but he was now running the ROTC, you know. So he liked Pop, because Pop was retired. He was always captain this, captain that. And so one day we're sitting on the sofa, and it was Sunday, and he had been to some church thing, but he came in dress whites. Chest full of stuff, you know. Came into the living room, and Pop was sitting there, and he turned to Mom and said, "Oh, they found me. The Navy found me."
Oh.
And he was so sweet. In his mind, the Navy had sought him out in Blackstone and came to honor him.
Wow.
You know.
Oh my.
You know, so it was just such a touching little thing, you know. So, but you see, all right, let's talk about father-son relationships. Father-son relationship is a very deep and mysterious relationship. It has all different levels. But the mythological meaning of the father-son level, on the higher level, is that the father is the sun god, mythologically speaking. And a naval officer is a representative of the solar god, because when the sun drips golden light, it lands on your shoulder, it lands on the brim of your hat, it lands on the hilt of your sword, it hits your buttons, you see. So the naval officer drips gold. See that?
Yeah.
So that's a mythic symbol of the sun god. And another thing, when a naval officer, the captain of a ship, the senior captain of a ship in a foreign port is a direct representative of the President of the United States.
Yeah.
You know, like if you go to a foreign port and something happens and you're the senior officer, you represent the President. So, the sun god, you see, who is the son of God? Who is the son of the sun god? Well, every son is the son of the sun god. But there is a transmission that has to occur. The sun has to be ready to handle the solar power. In the Greek myths, there's Icarus. Icarus' father made wax wings and flew. And the sun said, give me the power, I want the power. So he got the power to fly, but don't go too close to the sun.
Mhm.
So he did, the wax melted and pew. You see, so this, or the teenager, I want the power, give me the car keys, Dad.
Yeah.
Here you go. Wreck.
Yeah.
See, in other words, the sun has to be ready for the transmission of power. There is a ad I love on the TV, farm insurance or something, but it's
Yeah.
a black father and son sitting there
Yeah.
at the restaurant.
Sliding the check.
Yeah, it's such a little simple thing,
Oh, yeah.
but it's so profound
Yeah.
in this relationship. So the father's always picked up the check.
Oh, yeah.
And now the son reaches out tentatively and puts his hand on the bill. And the father looks at him, are you ready? And they're thinking, you know,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, you're retired now, I'm working. Are you ready? You know, to do it. And finally the father smiles and pulls his hand back.
Yeah.
So that's the transmission of power from father to son. So my father never made the transition of power.
No.
No, see this, the transmission of power comes when you surrender your power to the other. So in the ad, when the buying the check was his father. See, Tommy always paid for every check. I go down to see Tommy. Let's go out to, he didn't eat at home. Go out to dinner. It was just automatic. No, you're not paying. I got it. I got the power. Boom. So the power of attorney thing, you see,
Yeah.
that's power. You get power of attorney. You can do anything you want to that
Yes.
person's finances or whatever. Power of attorney means you have the power. So he wouldn't give it to me. So my father never gave me till the day he died. Well, he did once. I've probably told this before, but anyway. He was 94, he was in the hospital, he'd gone there for various, God knows what. And he was lying in, I got there early, so I came into the hospital room and he saw me and he held out his arms to me, welcoming me, and I just, my heart just broke, and I just went over and grabbed him and just started crying, you know. That was the only moment he had ever done that in his whole life, you see. And he said, I want to die.
Mm.
You know, so 2 weeks later, he was dead. But, you see, that was a surrender. He didn't give me any power, but he did surrender his defense mechanism, you know, his identity with, you know, that, you know, because he had never, you know, I was always kind of like, are you not ready yet? You know, the enlisted man, you know, that kind of thing. So anyway, jumping up to Tommy, so after we moved up to Blackstone, and then the lawyer came, and he gave me the power of attorney. And he said, you're the boss. So now I'm making financial decisions, you know, now I'm taking, you know. And so this was the first time in my life that I had ever been given that responsibility over another person, you see.
Was that because of the stroke, do you think, he gave you the power of attorney?
Oh, no.
Maybe he had forgotten, or was it together then?
Oh, yeah. But I mean, in other words, he was now living in my house.
Yeah.
Oh,
And so I was making decisions for him, and it was okay. Whatever I said or did, it was okay, because I was the boss. So that really fulfilled an aspect of my, because he was like a surrogate father to me. You know, so we all pick up surrogate parents in our life to work out blocks that our real parents don't give us. They can only give us so much, but what they can't give us, we're going to find from a good somebody who's going to be a representative, like the captain of a ship is the representative of the president. So Tommy was a representative of my father, but he was going to fulfill something my father couldn't do.
That's right.
You see. So, boom to boom, you know, the dots get connected. So then he dies, and I go through a real, I hadn't experienced this before, but after that it was a feeling of really emptiness and meaningless. Like, what am I got no Tommy to serve now.
Yeah.
You know, what, I didn't even want to write out, just nothing, like, you know, what's the use? Everybody dies, you know, it's just that meaningless thing. You know, I didn't know really who I was, kind of like floating in this place. And I think I mentioned this to you, but to fit it in, I was listening to one of his records, which was the soundtrack to Phaedra, which was a movie in 1963, with played by Tony Perkins. And in the end, Tony Perkins, the whole movie was a reenactment of a Greek myth, Phaedra. I told you about Phaedra.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, just to tie this in, so I'm listening to this, and then Tony Perkins drives off a cliff, screaming, "We have a father to, Phaedra, you love me like the good old days. We had a father to kill." And another car came around the corner, and boom, it goes over the cliff, boom, there. And when that music hit, my heart just opened in this sweet mix of sadness and joy, which was the same feeling I had when my father welcomed me in the hospital. It's the opening of the heart. And if you ever have that experience, you know, it's an opening that is ambiguous, because it's not like joy, yay, 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 and it's not like, oh, what is sorrow. It's a mix of the two. So the heart holds joy and sorrow together as one, so that you feel the sadness of life and the joy of life at the same time. So this is the putting of the two hands together. Most people look for joy and run from the sadness. But life only is experienced fully when they both come together, you see. So anyway, that ended my little week of, you know, poor me, I don't have any meaning, you see. So that was like so what did I kill? You see, I killed the father. In other words, when Tony Perkins went off the cliff screaming, "We had a father to kill," I killed the father.
Mm-hmm.
So when the son killed, now this is mythological. It's not like going out. You read in the newspapers where they do it. The fathers and sons kill each other. It's because they're stuck on a physical level and you can't go up to a higher level in this relationship. So I'm working at this upper level. So I killed the father. So when the son kills the father, then the son is the father. The tension of the two is, so the son is trying to be the father, and the father says, "No, I'm not giving it. You're not ready. You know, you've got some more work to do." You know what I mean? So that relationship, sons then have two choices. They're either going to be good, or I'll be just like you, or they're going to be just the opposite. The rebellious, you know. So they're going to, daughters too. I'll be just like you or just opposite from you. But that's still attached to the mother or the father, you see. Either they're turning away or turning towards, they're still attached.
What if that doesn't happen?
Pardon?
What if it doesn't happen? that the son becomes the father. But they, you know, it just never
Well,
happens.
you just die taking that with you.
We just die taking that with you.
Yeah,
Because
never having completed. So reincarnation is what you're born again to keep on redoing the same.
And he had his issues too, you know, way back to World War II days, and a business he should have inherited and the whole 9 yards, you know.
Yeah.
And my brother, when my father was dying, he just surrendered it to my oldest brother, 8 years older. And then there were 2 of us girls, okay? So my brother takes on being the father, okay? But the 2 girls, okay, myself and my little sister, especially me, could not handle my brother in that father position. I mean, and so it took me a long time, and maybe I'm not over it yet, but I've applied some of these things over time, like you say, that I can deal with it. There for a while, I couldn't deal with it at all. It was very, very difficult to deal with, because, you know, he just took over. My father let him make every decision while he was sick and dying and everything. And it was like none of our ideas counted, the girls.
Right.
Now, do you think there's a difference in father and the daughters?
Yeah.
You know? And what you know, I don't know, what happens if there's more than one son? Is it the
Wow.
oldest son usually?
I mean, well, actually, what I'm working with here is the primal relationship of father-son, and you could say daughter-mother, because
Yeah.
they're archetypal relationships.
Right.
You could almost say mythological relationships, or cosmic.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so we all work on these in different ways. But the goal is atonement,
Mm-hmm.
which is the end of the tension between the two.
Mm-hmm.
So you could say Christianity is based on this, where Jesus says, I'm the Son of the Father, and the Father and I are one. Well, what's he saying there?
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, see that the Father and I are one means that there is no difference between the Son and the Father. So both hands are together, you see, like that. This is all symbolic language, because the Father also means the world. You know, so if the Son then is me, and the Father is the world, so realization is when you say, I and the world, or I and the world is me. In other words, there's no more tension between me and the world, or me and the Father, or me and the Mother. You know, the tension is gone and forgiven, and there is one now, not two. So this whole quest of Buddhism is to discover the portal to this oneness or atonement. But not in time, like it's something I've got to seek, because that throws us back into the Son seeking the Father's transference of power or love or acceptance. So Buddhism is the cessation of seeking. Seeking fulfillment, or the absence of tension, or my problems with the world, whether it's a problem of trying to find something in a go to Walmart and you can't find the shampoo. So I got this problem, and then that can bring up a whole cycle of, oh, I'm no good, my wife's going to kill me, and yada. So, but anyway, this whole idea of the cessation of tension, you can look at it, and we're just like looking at it in terms of this archetype of the Son and the Father. So anyway, to finish up the little story here, so after Phaedra, I realized that what happened was that I killed the Father, which was the Father I needed approval from, you see. And when Tommy died, the Father had died, and now the son was left with no father, you see, so I killed him. Figuratively speaking, I mean, in me as a duality. And yeah, I put this up on the board. I have to break and share you. I like to come each week with a little adventure that happened during the week. So I hope you all have adventures. In other words, I hope you all begin to look at your everyday mundane, supposedly mundane life and see it in terms of a great adventure. A fascinating life that the most insignificant mundane things have the potential for being a great, wondrous marvel. So like in the organism, every cell has the whole organism, so every moment has the whole cosmos. The whole cosmos is compressed and manifesting through our moments, you see. But we're conditioned to see it fragmented and broken up, like a TV satellite image when the storm comes, or a Picasso painting. I can't make any sense of this, you see. I don't see the whole. So it's seeing the whole that integrates all of the different moments. So what we're talking about here is seeing the whole, like what you shared, but seeing it with a reference, seeing the moments that don't make any sense, like why did that happen? Mm-hmm. Seeing it, not the reference to my pain, but a reference to the whole. That means it's okay, that there's, it's all interrelated, that there is nothing that doesn't have any significance or meaning, but that meaning has to be discovered. You can't apply it. So anyway, getting to my story. So I have this pond. It's a Buddha pond. It's got two little, it's in my backyard, but it's about like, one pond is about the size of a coffin. And about like that deep, so they won't freeze. And then there's a little smaller one up there, and I have a pump here, pumps the water up to the top, and it flows down the stream to the low one. And the koi in there are now about that big. They've been there about 8 years. Started out like that. A friend of mine built it with great passion. I call it my pond master. He designed it and built it. So anyway, I'm having the backyard landscaped. We're going to be coming to redo the whole area, so I thought I would. The pond was I hadn't paid much attention to it, and the water was murky. There was too much. I hadn't cleaned it out in 8 years. So the koi were so big they kept stirring up the muck, So I've got a new filter, and I'm working this filter. And the way you work the filter is it's a big thing about like that, and you switch the valve so the water. You got the pump flowing in, but you direct the water out, so it goes out through the filter, so you can clean the filters by sending the water out through the filters, and it goes out right there. So I'm fixing that, and the water's coming out, and I got sandals on, my feet are getting wet. So I step back to get out, and I catch my foot on something, and I fall back like that. And the next thing I know, I'm all the way over here, falling down, and I hit my head on a rock, and my right side goes in the pond, and I hit my head, and I landed on something, got a big bruise here, and I had this Buddha that I bought to initiate the pond. It was one of these rosin dip things. It looks like it's stone, but it's really kind of foam core that they dip in this rosin, about that big. And so I broke his head off, so I got up, and I didn't know if I was bleeding or not. And I looked down, and there was a Buddha with no head. And I said, I killed the Buddha. So I go in the house. I mean, I was aware that, damn, I could have knocked myself out and fallen in the pond and drowned right there.
Yeah.
It was that close,
Yes.
And so I go in the house I had a big snack there, but it wasn't I didn't see lights or it wasn't bleeding, or bruised. So I began to, it wasn't a big event in the sense, oh my God, In fact, I didn't even tell my wife for a couple of hours because I just wanted to digest this thing. And so my awareness, began to see the whole thing, because what was interesting was that I'm here in my little conscious world, I'm fixing the thing, I'm in my me world. And the next thing you know, I'm falling, and the next thing I know, I go smack, and it's like me is back, right? Me is back saying, well, I hit my head. And I was aware, I pulled my arm out of the water, and then me saw the Buddha, me killed the Buddha. But in between, here, and all the way, and this was a long distance, it wasn't like I didn't, so why didn't I fall backwards?
Yes, yes.
If I'd fallen backwards, I could have hit my head on a rock,
Yeah.
dead weight, and that could have probably knocked me out in the water. But I fell this way, so I caught myself going down and softened the blow. So who was, my question was, who was in between here, all the way over to here? See, me was not there. I was aware that somebody, in other words, who turned me? You see, what turned me was the thing. I got to turn. If you ever fall, have any of these, or a close encounter in a car, where suddenly, you're driving along thinking about yada yada, and the next thing you know, you're swerving like crazy in some kind of a near thing, somebody's driving, but me is not there. It's because there's no choices. In other words, you're not thinking, should I turn here or turn there?
Right.
That's the normal place where we live, we're doing little things, but there is a sense of me doing this stuff. Well, in this space between here and here, there were no choices, there was no me choosing anything, there was just doing. So I was just doing, you see. But the question is that who is there, so this is our Buddha nature. In other words, if you're driving down the highway and you dope off and start thinking about yada yada, and suddenly you realize you don't even know where you are. Where did I go by my turn? Who's driving? I'm not driving, I'm daydreaming. So who's driving the car? Or my favorite story of my mother when she lost her keys. Car keys, searched for 3 days, going crazy, starting to have heart problems, get stressed. Lord, I quit. I give up. And immediately she walks into the bedroom, puts her hand in a sweater pocket, and there are the keys. She had no idea why she was walking in, and she just walked there. But she didn't have any plan, or no voices told her, go look at the sweater.
That happens a lot.
She just walked in there and put her hand in there.
Yeah.
We do this a lot, where something is lost or something, and we give up searching, and then suddenly we just move something.
Yes.
There it is.
So it
I
applies.
might have looked there 5 times.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's invisible.
Yeah.
You
If
can't
look,
see it.
You
What did you
cannot-
think it is? What did you think turned you? Did you say? What do you think turned you?
Well, you call it different names. You call it life.
Life.
Yeah, but even no matter what you call it, that is not it.
Mm-hmm.
See, it's just what you call it is just a representative or an abstraction of the experience, but the experience is beyond words.
Mm-hmm. I have that with
So
my-
our true nature, you see, is beyond
Mhm.
words, because words are talking about true nature and are not true nature. So me, our little me that we live in, is basically just thinking about life and about what we're going to do next and where we've been and what we have to look out for, but it is a duality of me and the world. Me thinking about the world and what I'm supposed to be doing, me thinking about the plump, not getting my sock wet. And the next thing I know, I'm flat on my face, almost going in the pond.
Some people call it a guardian angel, but that, I guess.
Well, see,
is a
again,
little-
this is where in the Christian framework,
Yeah,
there's got to be a reference outside of life that has intelligence or is guiding us. So you could say, well, God was looking after me, or an angel was looking after me, you see, but not me. I'm worthless. I got nothing. You see, so I've got a point beyond me. Now Buddhism says, no, you don't need that. You don't need that reference. You're it. That life has intelligence. It's not like dumb stuff, clay made out of, God made out of clay and blew life into it, intelligence, you see. We're it. So this was the whole point of Buddhism. Buddha was never metaphysical. In other words, the Hindus come with all these gods, this pantheon of gods going on. Well, with the Buddha, you don't need that. It's like science did that. When science was born in the Enlightenment, science said basically if you could figure out what the formula was for making this, you don't have to ask God to do it. In other words, you don't need God. You don't have to control the future. Before science, you had to ask God to bless me and to give my future and my life good fortune and grace, or get me out of this fix. So Buddha says, the teaching of Buddha is that you're responsible, you see, that in other words, take charge of yourself, and you are fundamentally good and intelligent. But we ride on this like a bubble sits on a pump. So we're kind of like the bubble boy in Seinfeld.
yes.
We live in a bubble with a me in it, but we're floating on this vast ocean of life. And when the bubble pops, just in other words, the bubble popped here, boom, boom, and came back here. But in that space there was a vast space of intelligent life that in my little bubble, you see, cannot access unless we relax our grip on the bubble and stop believing the bubble is the world. You see, as long as we believe my me and the little thoughts that I create is reality, then I'm pretty much invested in that little bubble, and only in moments does the vast, unnameable life that I am peep in once in a while. So this practice basically is recognizing that, and then having the intention to see through the bubble, because bubbles are transparent. But we're conditioned to see the bubble as opaque. So what, like me, is in this bubble, but I see the rim of the bubble as a world of things, you see. So I live a me in a bubble, but the screen of the bubble is projected out of me. It's like a 360-degree panorama movie, but I'm the projector, but I don't realize it. So I live in a projection of me, full of fears about the future and my past and my story and all that, you see. So this Well, it's like you go to a movie theater and you see the movie screen, and then you suspend disbelief, and you become the movie. That's when we enjoy a movie. We're in the movie, as the movie. Somebody talks next to us, we're right, oh, shut up, you know. I want to go back in the movie. Now, me is angry at this guy, but I want to be back here, you see, in the movie. Well, when I'm in the movie, I don't see, until the movie is over, I'm like, which is what the movie is. The movie is the light, and the screen plays forms of light that creates a story of the world. But the light, you see, we don't see, we just see the forms. But the light is life, you see. So all of us are light, projecting, the brain is like a little movie projector, and we project meaning and stories onto the world, with the me watching, me in the center, you see. And me doesn't want to give up authority to life. So me is kind of like the captain who doesn't want to give up his authority over the world and control over life itself. Because that would mean surrender of the power of control, which is what your brother took on. So he controlled everybody, and he liked it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What if the knee, and the knee travel over long distances? Because just this past Monday night, I said to my husband, you know, I haven't talked to my, now this has happened many times between the two of us. I said, I haven't talked to my college roommate for a while. I really feel like I need to call her. The phone rang,
Yeah,
right then,
Right.
and it was her.
Right.
I mean, what is that? I mean, is that, even though she lives in Pennsylvania?
Well, let's put it this way. All right, let's put it this way. I know what you mean.
Yeah,
Everything is interconnected.
yeah,
So we live in a bubble, a conditioned bubble of our society that says everything is not connected. Therefore, you have to control everything, make it work out. But life is interconnected. So there are moments when life breaks through and we verify the truth of interconnectedness, but it is such a surprise because we believe the truth is everything is not connected that we say it's a miracle. An angel did it, or God did it, or good karma, or it's an accident, a fluke, you know. But we don't see it as normal because in our conditioned bubble, that's not normal. So it's not explained. Our rational Western world cannot rationally explain that except by saying it's random chance. You see, because it can't come up with a logic of interconnectedness, because the logic of the Western, this is changing, but the logic of the Western world is Aristotelian logic, which basically says, this, whatever it is, this is a speaker, and this is a CD. A is A, B is B. A cannot be B and A at the same time. Sorrow is sorrow, joy is joy. Joy and sorrow cannot be one at the same time. You see? So your friend is there, and I'm here. I'm A, and this is B. So we cannot be the same at the same time, logically, in this logic. But this is not the logic of art. So the logic of poetry and art is that opposites are always brought together to make bigger connections, you see. But so the way I understand, the way I interpret it is that what you experience is normal, and the belief that it is not normal is not normal. So it's normal that everything is interconnected, and that what I'm thinking in here is going to happen out there. That's interconnected. So we have this all the time, but we just fluke it off, you see. I'm thinking of somebody and somebody comes up. But we were talking, we're coming in here. For some reason, I was talking, but we go to Costco and she gets Swiss cheese. I don't eat Swiss cheese, so I asked her about you. That cheese you get is Swiss, right? She said, yeah, my dog likes it. So we talk, I like it and the dog likes it, you know, so we talked about cheese. As soon as I got in here, my wife called up, said, you gotta get some cheese at Costco.
That's,
So,
and what about deja vu? You know, that used to scare me when I was younger. When I was a younger person, I would get deja vu quite often.
yeah,
And I still do get it. And I mean, now I'm not fearful of deja vu at all.
well, see, the logical world that we live in the Western world does not compute that.
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't fit
yeah,
into our world map. If something doesn't fit on your map, you just throw it out.
yeah. But it doesn't bother me anymore. That is kind of interesting when it happens. And it comes out of nowhere, too. You know, it's the same kind of thing, right in the middle of the happening. Right in the now.
Yeah.
Right in the now.
Right.
It happens. And it's like, I've said this before, I've been here before, I know all about this. You know, and then I can tell even if it was place I don't even think I've been, you know, or I don't remember anything about it, but I know I've been there, I know I've said it, I know I've done it, I know everything about it. I'll tell my husband, I just had a deja vu moment right now. You know, is that kind of a little bit,
Well, I've read,
is that different too?
what came to my mind as you were talking about that, I remember reading somewhere. All right, let's look at it this way. If you go to astronomy, and they say, well, look at those stars. Those are 100,000 light years away, so that star might be blown out right now.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're seeing is the past,
Right.
okay? But it looks like now, right? But what you're seeing is the past. All right, so then you go to the brain. Now, we have 5 senses, and Buddhism says 6, that thinking is a sense. We sense thinking. So 6 senses. This is data coming into the brain, right? So it's flowing in undifferentiated. Now the mind, with memory, because now I know this is a tape recorder from memory, this is laptop, you see. So everything here that I know, you know me because I was here yesterday or last week. I didn't just walk in. So memory determines the meaning of everything, and then if something we've never seen before, then we're really interested in it. Wow, look at that, and then we figure it out. You know, or you know, if you go empty out your great-grandmother's attic and you find stuff from a farm in there, or from back in the 20s, and they have implements that you have no idea what they were used for. What was this? You see, you have to go research it to find out what they used it for. But that's because we have no memory of it. So if you walk into a room, the data is coming in, bam, undifferentiated, and then the mind has to organize it into a world, into a bubble, with me in it. Now I know where I am, and I'm not scared out of my jeebies. You know, like when people started taking LSD, they were getting, anybody here ever have LSD? I haven't either. Smoke hot. I missed my window.
You can get the same effect from being over-medicated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the world then is wiggly.
Yeah.
You know, there's no, you know, and it can be very scary, you know, because it's, you know, it's like kaleidoscope stuff going on, you see. So this happens instantly, you see. The mind miraculously organizes this data, and creates a world in which we live in.
And it's there all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, but
Stays there.
what if there is a little hiccup in this? And so, but now see what Buddha brings in is that you have data coming in. You got the brain as a like a hard drive of a computer that's receiving the data. And then you got a mind, which would be the operating system. It's going to organize the data, because this has no meaning. The data is just stuff, light, you know, just bits, you know. This organizes it into a world. Now this is basically where the West stops. So then it says, well, in the world we've got an ego. And the ego is either going to be a normal ego or a dysfunctional ego with neurotic or complexes or whatever. So psychiatry and psychology then is to get the dysfunctional ego to be normal. But it doesn't say get rid of it or see through it. So Buddha comes in and says, wait, there's more. Awareness. And awareness is like blue sky, and the world is like clouds. But since me is a cloud, me can't see the sky. See, me is an I thought wrapped in a story. So me is a thought wrapped in a story. So now me has meaning because of the story of me, you see. But it's still a thought, you see. So, but awareness is not thought. Awareness is aware of thought. It can be aware of thought, but thought can't be aware of awareness. The cloud can't be aware of the sky, but the sky is aware. So meditation is sitting and allowing awareness to rise up and not identify with thinking. See, awareness, because we're conditioned from day one, identifies with thinking and a me, because the little children, well, who am I? You know, you got a name, you know, and so we're conditioned to see ourselves as a separate thing with a name, and then we develop a story, and then we're told we have to work hard to make our story come out right, have a happy ending. So we get to our age, we realize that that's a big hoax, you know. You know. So this is the age of wisdom, because now we can begin to see through this bubble, you see. And you all are in this class, obviously, because there is a curiosity to go a little bit further, you see. So, getting back to the point where I was here, stepping backwards and falling here, you have ego, or me, here and there, but there is nothing in here except just awareness.
Couldn't that be your subconscious?
Well, what does that mean?
Is that the same as awareness?
No, no. Okay. Yeah, no, that's a Western division of what you're conscious of and what you're not conscious of. Awareness would be aware of both. But consciousness, the ego, let me just add one thing. Ego is conscious. And conscious is me and it. Consciousness has a subject, me, conscious of something. And if there's something you're conscious of, a me has to be there to be conscious of. You can't have one without the other. And we can experience this. Be aware of that coffee cup on your desk there.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah. Before I said that, Were you conscious of it?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Well, just think about it, all right, what about that phone then? Were you conscious of the phone before I said that?
Well, I know they're both there. I brought
Aha.
them there. I put them there.
Your awareness is, we're aware of everything in the room, but I'm only conscious when I start thinking, looking at something to look at,
Right.
okay? So when you're
Right.
driving the car and your consciousness goes off into thought, and you're thinking about where you're going or yada yada, who's driving the car?
Your subconscious?
No, awareness. Your sub. Awareness is driving the car. Subconscious is the storeroom where we bury the things we don't want to look at. Subconscious is where we bury our pain from our childhood and bury what we doesn't fit our map. You see, my self-image is a good Buddhist or a good Christian or whatever. If I have any desires or anything, impulses, you see, or any history or something that doesn't fit that, I may just put it in my subconscious. Lock the door. Remember when Al Gore was running and they talked about the lockbox? Put everything in the lockbox. You see, that's the subconscious. You can't get into it from upstairs unless you have the intention to go into the basement. So basically, subconscious is just consciousness with a basement that our image, our self-image, our story is put there because it doesn't fit our story. See, if it doesn't fit the map, you can't compute it. The people in the news all the time doing this, where they're a strongly anti-gay politician or minister. And the next thing you know, they're in the newspaper, having been caught in somebody's public bathroom. Right? And they don't even know how this happened. Now they're on TV crying, oh, I'm scared, oh my God.
I think that's something completely different, okay? That's not.
What I'm saying is,
You know, lying.
but when they put something in their subconscious that didn't fit their self-image, but it doesn't go away, it comes up in unexpected ways.
How about when you dream?
Well, yeah, all that
That
stuff's
comes up.
down there,
That
yeah,
comes
all
up,
that
I know.
stuff comes up then, yeah. Yeah, but anyway, you know, so there's different ways of looking at it. I'm just saying the way I look at it. But this part here is vast, unnameable, undifferentiated. It's no judgment. There's no evaluation. There's nobody there. Nobody's there, you see. Somebody is over here. Nobody is there. So this is life. It's intelligence, you see, because it created the universe. See, this is how our Western thing, we think, oh, the universe didn't create itself, God created it. You see, evolution said, well, blind chance created it. You know, the molecules got together and had a big bang, had a party, and created the universe, and it just kind of like goes by random selection, you know, and the next thing I'm here. It's all a fluke. You know, so that the way science explained it. But then religion says, well, that's obviously bunk. Obviously God created it, because no, this brain, human brain, couldn't be a fluke. But we don't say that the brain created itself, because obviously in our story, matter is dumb. It's in the Bible. God made the earth out of clay or stuff, and then he just kind of like blew some life into it, and he gave it a plan. He designed the whole thing. He's like the boss. But the point is that in this map, you and me need to have everything coming from outside. We're not responsible. We didn't create our world. The world created me. my family, my situation, my bad luck, you know, my complexes, all of this, you know. So I'm just like a cork floating around in the waves, you know. And this whole point here is that, no, you are responsible yourself. And in fact, you know, this intelligence here is making our heart work, is coordinating our liver and all of our body on automatic. So right now, our body wisdom, this, who we are, is working this body, and my little ego is sitting up here like a mahout on an elephant with a little stick. And I think I'm the whole deal. I think I'm running the show. And the elephant just going on, boom, 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 you see. Life is that elephant going along, and I'm up here thinking I'm controlling everything with my little stick. You know what a mahout is? The little guy that sits on the elephant. That's right there, you see. So this whole practice is letting go of the belief that it doesn't mean I don't have a me, it just means that it's not in control. So then I can surrender to life because life is intelligent. I don't surrender to somebody stupid. You see, I surrender to intelligence, and then life works interrelated freely. I don't have to do anything. I can go to the store, and I can do my projects and everything, but this is done in a playful way. It's not a serious, I gotta get this thing. You know, I gotta control things. Anyway, let's close. Thank you so much.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Oh, that was a
Thank
good
you.
one today.
That was good.
Yes.
It all started with my memory story.
I wish my husband had been able to sit in on this class and hear about surrendering to the sun.